I'm Jason Squibb and I'm the Artistic Director of Collective Arts Limited. And earlier this summer, 2018, I worked with a partner organisation, which was the Cornwall Regimental Museum. And this was for a World War One centenary event. And we wanted to focus on stories in and around the Bodmin area. And obviously working with somebody like the Cornwall Regimental Museum, they were the county regiment for the Duke of Cornwall's Light Infantry, the DCLI. So it was fitting that we looked at some of those stories. One of the challenges with working on something like this was that you're not starting from a standard play script where you're given the play and the director and the designers and the actors. Decisions are all informed from that manuscript, if you like. You're starting with just an idea. You want to do something about the World War One, and you're looking at all the stories around that subject. One of the challenges was trying to find our characters. We wanted 80 soldiers from the First World War around the Bodmin area, or who fought for the DCLI and enlisted at the Bodmin barracks. So eventually we'd find our 80 soldiers. The tricky thing then is to find the where and when. And of the two battles that kind of interested us most, the Battle of Devil Wood, or the Battle of St. Quentin, which was part of the German Spring Offensive in March 1918. Soldiers would have enlisted at Bodmin Barracks 100 years ago, and in the very rooms that the audience would be travelling through to enlist, the audience were given a cape and a helmet and a prop rifle, and most importantly, an identity of one of these soldiers. They then crossed the road, once they'd got their marching orders, to Bodmin Station and headed off by steam train to a trench that had been built at Dreesen, several miles outside of Bodmin. And there they had a 50-minute immersive trench experience. So you're starting from the point of research, a 2-year kind of research process with 45 researchers, finding as much information as they can, and that then is honed into a script. The other end of that, you've got an exhibition. So you need the kind of research and the exhibition to meet in the middle in your performance. So the audience would get to the trench and we'd give them little bits of information. Some generic World War One stories would come out, German prisoners being captured just before the offensive, which kind of alerted the DCLI and the British and French armies that something was about to take place. So we had that scene. We had, again, different characters would come out of the research, and one of them was a deserter, a chap called Mills. So that story was talked about within the trench experience. And then we had the offensive itself, where the troops went over the top and fought a kind of retreat action. So all of that was in the performance and then needed to reflect in the exhibition. So it's not a case of you're starting with a script and just working out from that. You're kind of starting at the beginning and at the end, and then working back to the performance, and hopefully all the little components meet along the way. Building the trench, this is obviously going to be something that the audience are going to be encased within. And that was a 5-day process for Alan Munden, set designer, and his team. And they built this wonderful trench. All trenches would have looked slightly different in the war. It might have just been a muddy hole. But this one gradually came to life as more and more soldiers, audience members, pinned letters from home or to home on the walls of the trench. And because you've got 80 soldiers in the trench, that's 60 audience members who are part of the action, are immersed in that trench, all with those identities, and you've got 20 actors. Every day the performance is slightly different. So you could direct something one day which might have not been out of place. You can redirect something which might have been fine the day before and might be naturally fine for the next performance. And it's very tricky. One of the main challenges for the actors in the trench is, where is the focus? Because you've got a line of people. So if something's happening one end of a trench, you really do need the actors the other end to focus in on that action, so the audience know where they're looking. I'd say that's probably one of the biggest challenges for all the actors and for the audience, to know what's happening next. Because it might be that something's just been delayed by 15 or 20 seconds this particular day. For the actors, they might have to fill in 15 or 20 seconds. You've got your platoons. So each actor might be a commanding officer with a platoon of 7 or 8 people. And what they would need to do is really look after their little platoon, guide them through the whole story. And if something is delayed by a few seconds, a prisoner coming in, or there's a pyrotechnic which is a bit louder than normal and people are still laughing or looking frightened, they might have to fill in. And that's where the importance of backstory comes in. You've really got to know who your character is to have additional information if you need to fill in, rather than just stand there in front of 7 or 8 people with a big smile on your face. One of the reasons why I decided I'd like to do something for the First World War, I'd done a similar event down at Levant Mine, and that focused on the community of St Justin, Penworth and Pendeen, and the miners from Levant. And it was a success, so we wanted to carry on and do something else. And working and meeting with the Cornwall Regimental Museum seemed a good opportunity. And then you're delving away for those stories. So the motivation was, one, obviously it's fantastic stories that come out of the woodwork when you're delving into the 100 years ago and all these soldiers' stories. There was an opportunity to work with Cornwall Regimental Museum, Bodmin and Wenford Railway, Bodmin College, and it was a chance for us to share the local heritage and Bodmin's history from 100 years ago, and try and piece together what it might have been like, not only for those soldiers going off to fight 100 years ago, but the people who were left behind. And of course, you can gradually build that information from newspaper reports and census reports. So that was kind of the motivation. So in doing something like this, although the performance is all finished, the production is done, you're trying to, part of it is to kickstart interest in 100 years ago in the war. And that seems to have happened in terms of people would send back pictures. People who experience a trench have been to the Somme battlefields or Flanders and have taken pictures next to the gravestones of people they represented during the trench. There was one girl who came along, was given a random identity, and she went back and realised that she lived in the same house that the soldier also lived in 100 years ago. So lovely coincidences like this are still coming out of the woodwork, and that's part of the enduring interest, I suppose, of World War I heritage.